Like Dave the airplane guy, I also built a Sky Bunny rubber power free flight airplane. And I used the Peck Polymers kit, which is a division of Winded Up Enterprises. This is a laser cut kit, which gives you laser cut ribs for the wing, which speeds up the construction. And it should be probably more accurate than cutting out the ribs yourself. I use Titebond glue for most of the construction, which has a longer drying time than some glues, but I built it in several sessions. For a little bit of the plane, I used Duco cement, which dries a little bit faster yet. And then I did shrink the wing covering with water, and then I used an art spray like Dave had done. I also want to mention Bill Barnard, the designer of the Sky Bunny, and a dedicated model aviation educator, as well as a teacher in the school systems. He did much to promote model aviation with young people. Quoting his book, in addition to teaching modeling and basic aeronautics in the Los Angeles public schools, he also taught classes in aeromodeling at Summer Science Workshop of the California Museum of Science and Industry over a 17-year period. These are the parts that you will find in your Sky Bunny kit. There'll be 2 plan sheets and an instruction sheet. I used wax paper over the plans to keep the parts from sticking, which I'm not sure is the perfect solution, but it works pretty well. I use a sharp knife to cut between the tiny areas that have not been cut through with the laser cutting, so that when I push out the ribs, they do not break. And then I carefully sand around the edges where the laser cutting has burnt the wood so that disappears. The plans indicate to use the harder pieces of balsa on the leading edge, so carefully test this by bending. You can tell a difference between the harder and softer pieces. I use map pins to hold down the 3/32 square, and I use straight pins to go through the ribs to hold them vertical. I joined the 2 wing halves together before covering, unlike what Dave had done. Bill Barnard mentioned in his book that students had the hardest time with bending the landing gear. I proceeded very carefully to follow the outline pattern on the plan and made small adjustments if I overbent or underbent, but you don't want to do that too many times or the wire could break. But you want to get each segment like the plan, otherwise the farther you get off as you go around, that multiplies and you're really off. Not perfect, but not too bad. Tissue is included, or you can get gift wrap tissue in different colors, but I used Isaki tissue, which is the better tissue that modelers use for their contest type model airplanes. I use glue stick to adhere the tissue, and then I carefully pull it out as tight as possible, working around the edges, and I cut it with a razor blade. Here's my finished model before I sprayed it with the art spray. I like it looked pretty good. Well, the day I was going to test fly, it snowed in the morning, so I waited till later in the day. This is my first flight, and it became apparent that I didn't have enough up, so I slid the wing forward. As I increased the number of turns in the next flights, the plane still didn't fly all that well. It just didn't want to climb. It would pretty much just go up a little ways and then fly level. And then I could hear this awful noise of the landing gear vibrating. In between flights, I noticed this giant thermal come by, and it blew the leaves around for a couple of minutes. Well, this is about as high as I was able to get my Sky Bunny to climb that day. I had one flight that I put 1,000 turns in that went fairly far, and it managed to hit a chain link fence and put a little dent in the leading edge of the wing. So after this, I went and got something to eat and went home and fixed the leading edge of the wing, and then I thought my
prop shaft was too long. It was probably vibrating, so I cut that down, and the propeller was terribly out of balance, so I shaved off on one side of the propeller, and then I came back out hoping that with a smoother running motor that the plane would climb better, but it was really a disappointment. So I thought about it over the evening, and I thought, well, I never did see the plane anywhere near stall, so I'm just going to have to give it more up somehow. So I moved the wing way back and actually put a shim under the front of the wing. Well, that was what it needed. You can see here it's climbing very well, and it made a flight that covered most of the field. So I was really happy now. I think I had figured it out.
There we go.
Well, what a thrill that was to get the plane flying well after so many tries and trying so many things from my basic aerodynamic knowledge. Well, this is where the plane ended up landing on the other side of the road, and here is a close-up of how far I had the pylon up front and the amount of incidents I had to use. Thanks for watching the video, and more to come. Bye now.